Mishpatim Aleph, Chelik Chaf Aleph, page 128. The last question that we left off is, why does Rashi bring the example of Zakin ve'enei lefi chvaydei? Okay, so he says like this, hey, the beer in them, the explanation is as follows. Mit bringen the Midrashay is Rashi nicht oisen zu sagen at zweiten Pirish in Pasuk. By quoting the Medrash, Rashi does not mean to introduce a second interpretation, nor as das is a behemshich zum ersten Pirish. Rather, he intends that this should be like a hemshich, a continuation of the first explanation. Der Drash is mashlim verantwortet azeitige Schwierigkeiten in dem Pshat. That this secondary explanation is this Drash is being mashlim, is completing the explanation on the first Pshat. He says, ich verstande was Rashi is marach b'lushenei, and based on this we can understand why Rashi prolongs his lashon and says umidrashe kach dorshu rabbeinu, and it says as expounded by our rabbis, und sagt nit bekitzer v'in reiv erter umidrashe. It doesn't say like in most places that the rabbis say. Now the meat is Rashi madgish. Rashi is stressing as the pirish from midrashe. What Rashi wants to say is this second pshat, or when he says umidrashe kach, the lashon is umidrashe. This, he wants to tell us like this, that this medrash is very, very distant from pshat, and is nit kein drasha kar the pshat. It's not very close to pshat. Says a bazundre inyan from drash umidrash kach darshu is applied to drash. In other words, what Rashi is saying is that it really this midrash kach darshu is really a drash, and it's very far from pshat. Now, turn over the page 129. There's no mitzaref the midrash zum pshat hakosov. We're just combining the medrash's pshat to the simple pshat. Let's say as mit v'chadalta meint der pasuk euch zum name sein pa'om pshat hachedel, which means that this. What's Rashi telling us? Rashi is bringing these two examples to tell us what v'chadalta means. V'chadalta, you're gonna think in your heart that you're not gonna help this person. Oziv taziv imei. So v'chadalta also is going to be menam, is that sometimes you do not have to, you should refrain from working. Now, if you put in other words, by bringing the medrash that sometimes you refrain, over here, with the Torah, when the medrash says sometimes you refrain, Rashi wants to resolve the question, why specifically here does the Torah tell us the possibility of a person not doing the right thing? A person should think not doing the right thing. We asked before, why doesn't Rashi say this by all? Why doesn't the Torah say this by other mitzvahs? So vibald as pa'amim shat hachedel. So like this. Now the Rebbe says, since sometimes the Torah is giving you like a leeway to not do the mitzvah, so now can I manage to haben, dass sich mehr hätte sein, als ich in sein Fall ist nicht als a harb, oib wird choidel sein ma'ozolai. So now he could think, a person can mistakenly think, or he can rationalize to himself, that's not so terrible if I refrain from helping in his own situation, as will be explained further. The Ribber da, the pasuk shelo das mit zagen v'chadalta betmiyah. Therefore, the Torah negates this possibility by asking like a theoretical question or rhetorical question, and will you refrain? Rather, you surely will help along with this person. So, v'chadalta means that usually you could read. Usually, if without the medrash, you would read v'chadalta not as a question. But now, what was the chiddush of the Gemara, the medrash? When you read kisira chamar senacha, when you see your donkey who's your enemy, your donkey that belongs to your friends and to your enemy, which is crouching under its load. Are you going to think not to help him? Now, why does the Torah only prevent v'chadalta? Why does the Torah say v'chadalta over here and not in the pasuk beforehand? Or what's the pestafka over here? So the Rebbe explains from Rashi, is because whenever you have like a leeway to Meir Heter to get away with it, you say, it's not so bad. So since the Torah gives you a leeway over here that sometimes you couldn't get out of it by your Seinacha, if what? In the case of chamar shel goy, or if it was zaken ve'ein lefi chvoidei, so the Torah now has to tell you, no, even though there's a leeway, chadalta, ma'aziv loy. Okay. So the Rebbe says like this, and the Rebbe is going to explain what this means. Vav. So, kedei zu verstehen, für was soll man choshe sein, als die Pa'amim von Ata Chodel, sein alle zu geben sein, dem Kasalta Gereitig now. So in order to clarify why one should worry that when it's possible to refrain, a person might cause to rationalize and refrain improperly on this occasion. So he says, Taich Rashi ois, the fallen hat seinen. So therefore, Rashi now specifies the situations where it's permissible. And he says, Aleph, an elder and is beneath his dignity. So you see that the obligation of helping somebody is suspended even for consideration of a person's dignity, and how much more so, how much more so if a person lacks the strength. So I see that the Torah gives me a leeway that when it's not lefich chvoid the person, or it's chalishus of the keich adam, he can get away with it. And number two, behemoth nochrim masay yisrael, the animal of a non-Jew and it's carrying a load of a yid, der fun zetman, from which we see as is done nit oisen zu vermeiden dem tsar von der behemoth. We see that the intention of the mitzvah is not to alleviate the animal's suffering. So I see in these two things there's a leeway of the Torah, the covet of a person is more important than helping somebody. And I see that the Torah is not concerned in this case, which is a big chiddush, if the behemoth is in pain. Und das is was Rashi is makdim. And this is what Rashi prefaces and says, Pa'amim sha'ata choydel or pa'am sha'ata ezer. That there are times that you may refrain from helping, and there are times that you must help. So we asked before, why does Rashi say the words pa'am sha'ata ezer? It says, nit der pshatas bechlal is roi fallen is dod der tzivui oziv taziv, when the heter from chadalta pa'am sha'ata choydel is blois in oisnam fallen. It doesn't mean that in most cases you have to help the person. And the heter v'chadalta, in other words, pa'am sha'ata choydel, is only in these cases. Nor, der chiyuv prikas menachatchilim mitzumtzum umugbal. Rather, the chiyuv of offloading it, of helping the person, is only when it has limitations. Pa'am sha'ata choydel or pa'am sha'ata ezer. Der choydel und der ezer sind geteilt ki'ilu auf gleiche pa'amim.
I would say is the right word. When it is appropriate.
Right, and it's equal also. It's gleiche. It's times to refrain are as frequent as the times to help. So now, basically, what do I see from here? I see, what's Rashi telling me? Rashi's telling me, pa'am sha'ata oizer, pa'am sha'ata choydel. Pa'am sha'ata choydel, pa'am sha'ata oizer. So I see, basically, it's like half-half. It's not like most of the time you help, and most of the time, and sometimes, or in these cases, you can get away with it. It's literally half-half. So now, the Riber is Teile befehl Shela Za'anocha. So, no, es ist mehr als verstandig. Als ein Mensch kann sich dabei leicht Meure Heter sein zu bekam seinem Tzivui. So now we can see that a person can be very, very lax in helping. The Rebbe is Teire befeir she'ela za'anocha. Therefore the Torah says no. V'chadalta ma'aziv loy, b'tmiya oziv tazivim mei. Torah says even though a person can be lax, do not in this situation be laxed and get away with it.
To help him is like to not help somebody is like on the same level.
Correct. Yeah. And there's heterim. There's whenever the point with the Rebbe is
exactly the same.
Yeah. Basically, the point is this: whenever, and this is the human psychology, whenever there is a escape, it's not so bad. I have a heter. I can do this. I can mitzvah of this and that. I can get out of it. So, and the Torah wants to forewarn that. Okay. Now we asked before, if Rashi is quoting the Mechilta, why does Rashi first bring the example of Zokim in Lefi Chvoidei, which the Mechilta doesn't even bring, and Behemoth Nachri, which the Mechilta brings first, Rashi brings that second. While the Iker goyim zu einreden sich, as der Heter is gültig, auf in sein Fall, kommt von der Ptur bei Zokim in Lefi Chvoidei. The main reason which will cause the person this leeway, this psychology to it's not so bad is by the case of Zokim in Lefi Chvoidei. Mashenken der Ptur von Behemoth Nachri is a tafel v'tam v'siyah, as the Chiyuv Bechlal soll nicht sein Chamor be'enev. Mashenk in the case of the Behemoth Nachri is like secondary to the first one. So what's going to cause the person to like make the mitzvah lax is the first case of Zokim in the Fichvedi. So he says, "Uns is euch say again?
No, the Kala. Who is better than me?
Exactly. And it says, "Euch verantwortet bepashtus for was Rashi bring nit dem Fall from the Hoya ben Akvaris." Now we can answer why Rashi doesn't bring the example of Hoya ben Akvaris. Von dem Fall can man nit aroistringen can kula in dem klalas achir from Prika. Over here, I'm not going to be able, from this case, to make a kula for myself in regards to the obligation of unloading. Val, das is a seltene Metzius. It's a very, not a very common case. What's the case? As a be'ema mit a Masse, also gefinnen beis akvaris und der gefinner is a kein. This case of Hoya ben Akvaris, you have to have a chamor or an animal has to be in beis akvaris. He has to be carrying a masa, and the kohen has to be the one. It's very far fetched. And also, if you think about it, what's the reason why you can't help is because the chumrah of the kohen, not because the kula of the prika. So therefore, Rashi says this example doesn't make sense. Rashi brings only the other examples and brings the example of Zokim and the Fichvedi because that's the first thing that a person can be made a heter. Zayin. Damit kommt euch zu a Tesefes Bier for was steht v'chadalte chuli in unsere Pasuk Dafke. Now we can understand where the Torah includes its cautionary remark. You will refrain, specifically in our pasuk, onit in Friedrich pasuk by Shabbos Aveda, and not in the previous psukim of Shabbos Aveda. Afal bi was oich by Shabbos Aveda is the zelberdin. Even though we know by Shabbos Aveda, pa'am shatim misalam, sometimes you could refrain. So why doesn't the pasuk say the expression of echadalta? So he says like this: by Shabbos Aveda pasich zu zogin as mitzadim die fallen wenn atem misalam vet min oplernen ayro heter if mekel sein in klolis mitzazu. When dealing with Hashavas Aveda, it's not reasonable to think that a Yid's few exceptions might lead a person to rationalize like a general way of being lax in observing the mitzvah. Why? Because the majority of the cases of Hashavas Aveda is not very doesn't entail a lot of effort. The pasuk dar retvegen kisifka shoyd chamoyre teya. Over here, the pasuk is speaking about when a person lost an ox or his donkey, which we know chai neses atzmei, chai can carry himself. Afilu b'sefer dvarim retzich, even in Parshas Kiseitze, it speaks about simlose l'chol avidas achicha. But by ze alle is the hashava merst nikin gereis aticha. So basically, by all the cases of hashava saveda, it's not what's the big deal. You find something, you return it. It's not extra effort. However, in our case, in the case of unloading a burden, is thus an arbit was tamid verbunden mit tircha. This is an activity that always requires exertion, effort. So since an elder person since it's beneath his dignity, he's exempt. Therefore, this might lead a person to be laxed about the whole mitzvah as explained above. Okay, so basically, Al Pi Nigle, what the Rebbe explained is that the reason why Rashi, the two examples that Rashi brings is to explain the V'chadalta, and why the Torah explains V'chadalta over here uses these expressions of V'chadalta because dafka in these inyanim a person could be lax and murder heter that he doesn't have to help the person. Okay, hey, Ches. So he says like this: in Pirush Rashi's Andam Rumas Nefloish B'Teira. Rashi's commentary alludes wondrous, deeper dimensions in Teira. I'll read that Pirush Baal Shem Tov the pasuk as Chamor is Meramis of Guf Chemer Shalcha. The Baal Shem Tov says that the word Chamor, it's a famous thing, alludes to the physical body. Chemer Shalcha. Chemer is it's like a corporality. On Ozev Taziv Imay meint, and what does it mean? Ozev Taziv Imay as metarnit farlozen und brechen dem Guf durch tinies visi Gufam nor men darf mevar mezachach sein. So Chomer kisira chamor means your body. What does it mean? Ozev Taziv Imay means that you're not allowed to have the approach that a person should break his body through fasting and like self-mortification. Instead, a person has to purify and refine his body. So that's what it means. Kisira chamor senacha, when you see your body, so then oziv taziv imay, you're not allowed to like forsake your body and like not take care of it fast, but rather you have to be mavar and mezachich. So he says like this, Kem Zogin, we can explain. As the far bring Rashi ditzvei fanim davka shata chaydel. So why does Rashi bring these two examples that you should refrain? Zok ben lefich vede behemes nachar behemes Yisrael. Why? Weil ze sein in menames if ditzvei fanim was werden gebracht in alten Neben Shulchan Aruch. Wenn man meg io fasten, because these two examples alludes to what the Alter Rebbe brings in Shulchan Aruch, in Choshen Mishpat, in Hilchos Niskei Guf, V'nefesh Adam, V'nefesh. Sif Dal, the Alter Rebbe brings over there two examples when you're allowed to fast. When are you allowed to fast? Number one, Tiny Shel Tshuva. If a person is doing Tshuva, and if a person is doing Tshuva, so he's allowed to fast. And also, Tiny is Kedei L'marek Nafshel Hashem. And also, it's fast in order to cleanse your soul before Hashem. So that's what the Alter Rebbe says in Shulchan Aruch. Two times you're allowed to fast. Number one is if you're doing tshuva, you're allowed to fast, and also you're allowed to fast in order to cleanse cleanse your neshama.
They're different?
Yeah.
The same reason.
Right. So what's the difference between tshuva and the mark nafshi?
Well,
I mean, what's the
the
idea?
second one, you don't have to have an Aveira.
Correct. Yeah.
Oh, you just found it.
You want to go on a what are they called when you want to cleanse your body? What are they called?
Body
A body cleansing. Yeah.
No, they have like these drinks or these.
Detox. Yeah, detox. That's the word. Yeah. Okay. So he says like this: Shloimy as they zayin in masim to the tzvei fanim nigeres hatshuva seif perek aleph and reish perek sheni. This also corresponds to the two kinds of fasting spoken about in Nigeres HaTshuva Aleph, and at the end of Perek Aleph, and at the beginning of Perek Beis. He explains like this: Taniya shel Tshuva zayin ven esret sich wegen Tshuva oder shleimusi ala chatoim. What does it mean? Taniya shel Tshuva speaks about Tshuva on sins. The oifen is Rashi, so like this. Dem oifen is Rashi Meramis in the fall from Behemoth Nocher Masay Yisrael. So this Rashi alludes to in the case of when the behemoth is a goy and the master is a yid. When a yid zindik, chas v'shalom, wird sein Guf and nefesh habahamis abgerissen für Kedusha, und the fisha gains a ariber tachas memshal zaklipa, so wird behemta yishol nachri. When a yid, God forbid, sins, so the body and the nefesh habahamis is like pulled away from Kedusha, and only temporarily it's under the jurisdiction of klipa, behemah nachri. So that's what he's saying. Taniya shel tshuva is when a person does a sin. So behemoth nachri umasay shel Yisrael means that the behemoth is a goy, that the yid now is under the jurisdiction of the goy, of the klipa. We know the Gemara says that even a peish Yisrael is Melei Mitzvahs Kedimin, a massive in Mitzvahs Yisrael. So he's still connected. Befrat as the neshama from Ayidin is gam b'shas achet hayseh b'amnei ita yisparach, as the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, that even when a yid sins, God forbid, he still has faith. So bleibt ganz beim Yidin, it remains his emunah is still complete by a yid. So he says that kegen the Tanya is the mark nafshel Hashem. So that's the first sin. The first type of tshuva person could afflict his body, fast, is when he has to do tshuva. So what's tshuva? Tshuva is when. So why is a person doing tshuva? Is because he sinned and he's under the jurisdiction of a goy. That's the behemoth nachri. But still, even if he's in the behemoth of a nachri, he still has the masah of a yid. His emunah is still there. However, the second type of fast is in order to cleanse the soul. So in other words, yeah, when he does a complete tshuva, other. Like you said, there wasn't a sin, nor wilder grechen. He should be wanted in front of Hashem. Can sein durch dem zweiten Kotze. Wenn einer ist reingetan in edlen ruchnistik in Yonim, und der Pfarrer nimmt sich nicht als viel mit der Avede von Birbe sich Chaguf. Ken sein Guf verbleiben in einer gewissen Matze von Chumris für Gasses, was Pelt auf Gasses auch upon him, nicht Schleimus b'mirek nefesh. Der Fall dafür haben Tainis, was sie tun auf am Mirek für Sichah von Nefesh, a Guf nefesh. So even though a person is involved in more ruchnistic in Yonim, so he's not so involved in being poil and being mivar his Guf, so it could be that his Guf is remaining very, very coarse, so he needs to refine it. Und das, so he says this, and das is Rashi, mein Name ist mit dem Fall von Zokin wenn lefichwede. Das seinen at die Tinies von dem was is Zokin, zeshe kana chachma. So Rashi is alluding to the first example, Zokin when lefichwede, which that's referring to the tiniest of a Zokin. What's a Zokin? Zokin we know is somebody who's kana chachma. The far as by him the saskus and bir v'zichah guf echemer an inyan von ein lefichwede. Says Yerida legabe sein Kavod malos yeruchnis. Und die Tinies the mark nafshe sein for him mashtem dem zichah guf was held verfelt. So he says that this is what Rashi is alluding to in the case of tiniest of Zokim in lefichvede. The fast that a person fasts, this Zokin is in other words zeh shekana chachma. So he's involved in mimavar the guf and the chomer, and it's not lefichvede; it's a yerida for him. And the tiniest of the mark nafshe is to be mashtem. Pieces move on by primus yonim for us. Rashi bring nitar up from them fall from Cain v'hayabe nakvaris. So why doesn't Rashi bring this example while they're Inyan from their dogma in Avedis Ruchni? So they're wieder Inyan for Bemis Nachri Master Shishol. The Hema is Bein Akvaris. Their Chatoim is their Guf Nefesh Bahamis Yerd in Mokim Hamisiv Atuma. Or the Neshama Bas von Ayidin is the beginner from Bas Cain. Mechutz the Maila from Mokim Hamisiv Atuma. While Gam B'Shasachid Hesiv Emanit Yisborach.
That's why it doesn't bring that example.
Why?
No, because the Yid is different.
So he says like this: the reason why the Rashi doesn't bring the example of Kohen Beis Akvaris is because we were saying Beruchnius.
Yid is out excluded.
So what does it mean? Through the sins of the Nefesh Bahamis, so basically he goes down to a place of death, but the Neshama is still in a way of Bas Kain. Now, on Rashi kleibt euch dem Fall von Zokim in Lefichwede Davke, but in Ruchnius is not the Metzias von Emes in Hoya ben Akvaris, because Beruchnius you never could really have a Metzias that a Yid is Hoya ben Akvaris. Euch a Yidische Guf is a Metzias Nitzchis, by welches is nicht Shaykh kein Misev Hefzit the Garmi. Even a Yidische Guf, it's not Shaykh to have a Hefzit. Und es a Meise Yodeli Sport, und ihm is da Bechidas HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so can it verfallen während Chas V'Shalom. Even the Guf of the person, we know is the glory of Hashem. So to have a case that a Yid is in a matzav, oh, hoya ben akvaris, even a Guf, can't be. It's possible to be in the Rishus of the Nochri. But this is not a Shina in Rishus. As the Fisha is a Tachas Rishus, but nit kein Shina in Mahus HaGuf. You can't have a Shina in the Mahus of the body. But euch demolt is da a Yidische Guf. A Yidische Guf. It's still a Jewish body. As that etzem haguf von a Yidin soll sich beruchnis gefinnen, mamish in a Beis Akvaris misruchnis, das kann man nicht sagen. You can't say chas v'shalom that even the Jewish body is going to be in a Beis Akvaris. That's not possible. So Rashi al pipnim satera is giving you examples. What's the examples? The examples are alluded to the times that a person is allowed to fast. When? Either if it's tiniest of tshuva or tiniest of the marek nafshe, which we said is the difference between doing tshuva when a sin or doing tshuva just to get closer to Hashem. But it's not possible that a Yid should be, even the body of a Yid should be mamish in a Beis Akvaris. It could be in the jurisdiction of a goy temporarily, but to be in a Beis Akvaris, das nicht. So he says like this, al derech halacha, like the halacha says, as a Yid was euch teira zogt as nimker lenachri, even when a Yid is sold to a goy, his dam gufa is our einem von lieb in Yisrael, avadahem shtari kodim, that like Hashem says, you're my servant, avadahem, because my deed comes before you. Okay, last ois. Und das ist euch der Bier Pnimis an Yonim die zwei Pirushim was Rashi sagt da in Pasuk. And this is also the Pnimis explanation what Rashi brings in these two explanations of this pasuk. Loi pshutei is v'chadalta ma'aziv loi atmiya. According to this simple explanation, v'chadalta ma'aziv loi, ayid was es yosher heilech v'halikim as asatim yosher und din dem ebersten napi seder ateda sagt der pasuk v'chadalta ma'aziv loi b'tmiya. Tornit kein sein kein inyan von sigufim v'tainis was brechtem guf. That a Yid, when he is involved in serving Hashem and doing the right thing, he's not allowed to be involved in fasting. Nor men darf sich vernehmen mit guf, if im evar sein und mezach sein b'keteres Baal Shem Tov. A person like the Baal Shem Tov says, kisira chamor, when you see your body, you can't do tshuva in a way of fasting. That's not the avodah. The avodah is to be involved with the body. So now, danach kommt Midrash, and then the Medrash comes and says, was bavort oichazelcha was chotei upagamai oder akapon nit gegangen in der chayosher. So the first time the Rashi is speaking about, the first explanation is speaking about somebody who's going in the right path. The second is that even if, God forbid, a person makes a sin, so sometimes he's in a mitzvah that he refrains. Nevertheless, after became he's cooking the fanal sleep in tshuva. Megmin fasten un afilu mishene yochel isanis. Sagt alter Rebbe in gersa tshuva ira brura as b'der sene ela tormenit mar bezayn betanis afilu tanis tshuva norman zol pay the zayn di tanis mit tzedakah. So nevertheless, not looking that the person has to do tshuva, and we know that through tshuva you're allowed to fast. Even if somebody cannot fast, what does the Alter Rebbe say? That nowadays we should not fast. Rather, we should be paid ourselves with tzedakah. We baal as the chalishus hader is nit mitzader eigene bechira nor ba'azay hater eberster b'shafte der. Since the chalishus hader is not because it's dependent on you, that's the way Hashem made it. Is sicher as euch durch dem Eufen ha'aveda von Anweisung durch den Baal Shem Tov and Alter Rebbe felt chas v'shalom gornit and dem tikkun ha'cheser was man will gehert durch tanis v'sagufim. Obviously, if you're going to follow the ways of the Baal Shem Tov and Alter Rebbe, nothing will happen. But the reinu zeh is gegeben geworden der keach zu kennen misaken sein yon and built to the dream. And even was is need verbunden mit tsar v'daiga. In our generation, we fix things not in the way of tsar and daiga, and dafka mit simcha with joy. Okay, we finished both sichos.